Welcome back, everyone. We're here for the 2021 season of From the Stands College Football Show. Joining me again from last season, we have Andy, the Illinois Illini fan. How's it going, Andy?
It's going great, man. After week 0, we proved that we, just like everybody thought, we are the favorites for the college football national championship. So the Bielema era has started. It's refreshing. It's great. Anytime you can start your season off and your head coach's tenure off with the first points being a safety, I am all for that. But no, I'm feeling good. I'm so happy to be back. I am just hyped that college football is back. We got 16 games today on this Thursday that we're recording. What, 8 tomorrow, full slate on Saturday, Notre Dame on Sunday. Tom, let's go, man. Like, inject it, boys. Let's do it.
There you go. The Illini leading college football with the best record in college football right now. Tied for. And we also have Tom here, the resident Notre Dame fan. How's it going, Tom?
What's up, Brian? Thanks so much for having me back. Andy, pleasure to be with you here as well. Congrats on the win last weekend. I know you were at the game in Notre Dame this season, new quarterback, local kid from Sayville, New York. So really looking forward to seeing what the Fighting Irish have to put on the football field this season, coming off obviously a disappointing ending to the 2020 campaign. And I'm really excited to get this one started, boys.
There we go. And Andy has already alluded to it. We're going to get into our week 0 recap here. The Illini were part of that, of course, and they got the win. So, Andy, I guess we'll start with you with the obvious one here. Big win. Like you said, the Bielema era has now officially started. I'm assuming that was the main game you watched last week. So, can you give us a little rundown here?
That was the game that I was at, just baking in this 90-degree heat. You love college football, but when it's at the end of August and it's 90 degrees and you don't have shade in your seats till the second half, it was a rough one. But it was great. It was just so nice to. That was my first sporting event in 2 years with all the COVID stuff and everything. So it was just great to be in a crowd again, and especially an Illini game, a team that I super enjoy watching. It was good. The Illinois came out. They did some things on defense that I like. They stopped playing the awful Lovie Smith cover 2 that never worked. And they, moved to a little bit of a different defense. New defensive coordinator Ryan Walters coming over from Missouri. They can use 3 down linemen. They can use 4 down linemen. Scott Frost was quoted as saying, as soon as they lined up in the first play, about half of our playbook went out the window, because you know what? Scott Frost doesn't need to make any adjustments, right? That's not a part of coaching football. He is on the hot seat. Quickly, I was sitting by so many Nebraska fans, and I turned around and asked, I'm like, so if he has another shitty year, which probably he is going to, what do? You fire him? They're like, well, he's got a buyout of $20 million. Like, what the hell is the University of Nebraska doing? That is why I think I am anti bringing back, a legend from your school, because if it goes south, it just doesn't leave a good taste in anybody's mouth. But back to what happened on the field. We do lose our quarterback, Brandon Peters, in the first quarter. Left shoulder injury, non-throwing shoulder. So you don't like that anybody's hurt, but it's better that it's his non-throwing shoulder. Brett Bielema said this week in his press conference that they're not completely ruling him out for Saturday against UTSA, but they're not optimistic that he's going to play. You bring in Artur Sitowski, shout out Rutgers legend, the transfer, is our backup this year. He comes in and he was 12 for 15 for 124 and 2 touchdowns. Not much else you can ask for from a backup. You also add in Mike Epstein, 16 carries, 75 yards and a score. I think all 4 of the running backs currently listed on the roster all got some carries for Illinois. Chase Brown was listed as the starting running back and even announced as the starting running back at the stadium. But he only gets 5 carries for 24 yards. They kind of seem to be holding him out a little bit. Pretty interesting. Isaiah Williams is a name that you guys need to remember. They moved him from quarterback to receiver this year, and they are going to put the ball in his hands as much as they can. He ends up with 6 catches for 41 yards and a score, but it was really what they were doing with him in the play action, pre-play, moving him from side to side, putting him in motion, a lot of jet sweeps, just getting him the ball in space. He's an electric athlete. Look for him to have a big year for Illinois. And then Luke Ford, the tight end transfer from Georgia, finally getting involved in the offense after Lovie Smith refused to use him last year for some reason. 3 catches, 30 yards, and a touchdown. If you look at the Nebraska side, Martinez, if you look at his numbers, you wouldn't think he had that bad of a day, but they just could not get out of their own way. They had so many penalties. They had turnovers. Martinez ends the day 16 for 32, 232 and a touchdown, adds 17 carries for 111 yards. One of those carries was like a 70 or 80-yard touchdown run. So that is the hunk of the yards there. They did get 6 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown from Martin, their receiver. They got a brand new running back in Irvin Jr., who, 12 carries for 33 yards. You got to credit the Illinois defense, what they were able to do in the run game. I mean, they really only gave up that one big run to Martinez, but other than that, they were pretty stout. I think anytime you can hold a team's lead back to 12 carries for 33 yards, that's just something to be excited about. Brett Bielema spoke a lot about just the amount of teaching moments there were in this game for his team. He was super happy to just get the win for the opposing fans, and he knows how special it is to get a win in your his coaching opener. It's a Big Ten opener. It's the first college football game of the year. Actually, fun fact, Brett Bielema is the first Illinois head coach to win his Big Ten opener since 1988. Pretty insane stuff there. So if you're in Illini land right now, you got to be pretty damn excited. The final was 30-22. Illinois was up by 3 scores at one point. The final really isn't indicative of how this game really went. It was not that close. Just a great day in Champaign on Saturday. Nothing to complain about.
There you go, folks. That is the in-depth analysis of someone who is not only watching the game but was at the game.
Living and dying with it, yes.
What about you, Tom? Did you catch any of these week 0 action here?
I mean, UCLA looked impressive, right? Zach Charbonnet, I think his name is, 3 rushing touchdowns on just 6 carries. Yeah, so, Chip Kelly, good to see him get a win over Hawaii. And Andy's game, Illinois over Nebraska. I was impressed. Sikowski came in and, he didn't have to throw the ball too much. He was effective when he needed to be. And Andy pretty much covered all the points, Brian. So that's pretty much the icing on the cake.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. The game that I was focused on was also that UCLA one. Zach Charbonnet, maybe a sneaky dark horse candidate for the Heisman there. Obviously, Hawaii, not big competition or anything.
Well, as soon as Chip Kelly put that visor back on, Hawaii knew they were in for some trouble. Come on, visor Chip Kelly is back. Watch out for UCLA this year.
That's very accurate. Watch out for the visor. All right. Anyways, we're gonna move into a little segment we call open tryouts. The Big 12 here. What's happening, guys? OU and Texas, obviously. We're not gonna harp on this too long. It's been covered for the last month, pretty heavily. But OU and Texas have decided to leave the Big 12 to head to the SEC starting in 2025. And while we ignore all that madness, what this does do is it opens out what is essentially an open audition for, essentially every team who could be moving. Some are very obviously going to be, staying in place. But all these options, we have the Pac-12 that could be just enveloping, half of the state of Texas here, taking those teams. We could see this massive conference that we, haven't even fathomed yet, based on this alliance that we've listened to the presser on from the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten, getting together. So I guess my question here is, what teams are we going to see, this season and this next upcoming season? Who do we think this benefits the most? And who's, is this kind of, it could not really hurt the program, but, maybe get them a little scared here. Tom, we'll start with you on this one.
Well, I think there's actually a lot riding on tonight for UCF, right? Because if you start the season off the big win against Boise State, you're immediately proving your case. And, Dylan Gabriel should have a good game. So wanted to wish you good luck, Brian, because I think your team is one team that could take that next step. I think, a lot of G5 teams are in the discussion. You want to talk about Memphis, Cincinnati, BYU potentially. I think those core 4 are the first four names that at least pop into my brain. I don't know if there's any I'm missing, but Gus has a lot riding on this season. How will those new cornerbacks shape out for UCF and Brown and Dawson, with obviously Aaron Robinson leaving for the NFL draft, Tay going as well, and Richie Grant, the safety. I mean, your secondary is new, but your front seven is still somewhat experienced. So I think your team is actually one of the top 2 to 3 teams that I'm looking at saying, hey, there's a lot of Big 12 chaos going on. Texas and Oklahoma could be leaving soon. UCF is one of those first teams, and probably the outside of Cincinnati, the biggest name.
Mm-hmm.
Andy?
Yeah, I was just going to say Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's got to be the first call. UCF is on that list as well. I'm trying to think, I feel like this, at least make these teams or like make it geographically make sense. I feel like we're going to get to a point where we're just going to see like these conferences are just not going to make sense. Like you said, the Pac-12 is going to have like half of Texas. I know they already have Colorado, so they do kind of stretch into the middle of the country. But I think you just look for any G5 team, see if you can convince an independent team like BYU to come over. Notre Dame, I don't think they're going to join a conference until they absolutely have to. But I think Tom nailed it, man. I think maybe you look at some MAC schools that have really succeeded, but I mean, it'd be a damn shame to break up the MAC. I mean, who doesn't love some Wednesday night action?
Some action, baby.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think this is just interesting. I mean, who didn't see this coming? Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, I don't know if I guess I could say who didn't see this coming, but I mean, it just makes sense that they kind of have their eyes on the SEC. Everybody knows, what Texas is the most valuable athletic department in the country, I think. I mean, everybody knows the success Oklahoma has. I guess here's my take: if Texas moves over to the SEC, they're setting themselves back at least 5 years.
I agree.
They're not going to walk in there and compete in 2025. Oklahoma, I think it's a little different because we know what they can do offensively, and I don't want to say they completely fixed their defense, but their defense in the past few years has proved that they can compete and that they can keep opposing offenses at bay. So I think that's my take, is just with all these super conferences, you're going to have these middle of the road Big Ten, middle of the road SEC teams or whatever conference that are going to struggle, that are going to be like, well, what if we move down and just dominate the G5, which would never happen. But I mean, the bigger these conferences get, I think just the more struggles you're opening up are like the middle of the road teams, which the NCAA doesn't give a fuck about anyways. So
yeah. It'll definitely be interesting. Thank you, Tom, for the UCF shout out. It is a bit poignant that this is the year, with all this happening, that everyone's been asking for a UCF Boise State matchup, as maybe not the biggest, but at least in football, the most recent big time programs who are getting the big wins, and of all season for them to play, it happens to be this season. When these conferences, especially the Big 12 at this point, are basically taking notes pretty heavily. Go ahead.
What about a team like Louisiana or Coastal Carolina? I think they also have to be in the conversation here. I'm pretty sure Louisiana's ranked like 23rd going into the year. So
yeah, but both ranked this year.
That's another team to watch out for. And I mean, just the quarterback duel of Bachmeier and Gabriel is going to be one to watch tonight. If Boise State doesn't come out and run the Statue of Liberty first play, they're dead to me.
Yeah, if you're watching this before the game has started tonight, you better be tuning into that game, because that should be a good one for this early action here on a Thursday night. It's Thursday night. What else are you going to do? Watch Boise State versus UCF. Two best teams of the G5. But I do want to note quickly what you said about how conferences are basically getting stretched, essentially. Yeah, I don't. I guess the biggest thing that we've heard so far was that the Pac-12 was potentially looking at taking on the Texas schools as well as Oklahoma State as a sort of package. And at that point, I don't know if I was talking with you guys about this or with some other from the stands peeps, But at that point, you either have to restructure the divisions or just, live with the fact that travel is going to be absolutely asinine. Because as is, these northern teams, I can't imagine even just playing 2 per season of, the Texas, Oklahoma teams, and even if it's, cross divisional, that's just absolutely brutal. Going from, Oregon, Washington down to, central Texas. That's I don't know, man. I don't think we're gonna see that happen unless, all of the schools get enveloped and they sort of do this Northern California versus Southern California division. I don't know. That'd be crazy, but I'm excited because this is going to be interesting to see where everyone goes. Like I said, as a UCF fan, it's kind of exciting. You wish that you'd been looked at earlier by someone like the Big 12. We were sitting here waiting. Bob Bowlesby, looking at you, and now you're only coming to us because you're desperate. So that's unfortunate, but we'll take what we can get. Anyways, we're gonna move on here. Actually, I'm gonna do a quick social media plug. Obviously, if you're not following already, down below, go hit that subscribe button. Links to Andy over on this side and Tom's shows will be down in the description as well. If you want to find us on Twitter, you can find us at From the Stands US or on Facebook, From the Stands Sports. And now we'll move on to some predictions. Some who may know me know that I absolutely hate preseason rankings. I think they do absolutely nothing for the sport except make it harder for teams who are not ranked early to climb those rankings. But if all these analysts and coaches get to do it, guess what? We're making predictions as well. So we're going to do some way too early predictions for the 2021 season. Andy, let's start. What do you got for us here?
Let's see. Way too early predictions. I think Ohio State is going to absolutely destroy everybody else in the Big Ten. I think they're far and away the best team in the Big Ten, and I think they make it to the college football playoff. I think Ohio State goes to the college football playoff this year. What else? Scott Frost, I say he gets fired. I think they're going to fucking suck again. Well, also the thing with Scott Frost is, I mentioned earlier the $20 million buyout, and he's also a Nebraska guy, so they always seem to get like one more year than they should. So maybe he will get one more year. What else? Cincinnati's going undefeated again this year. That's my bold prediction. Okay. I think Luke Fickell is one of the best coaches in the country. Anytime you can turn a team like Cincinnati playing in the American Conference, no offense, Brian,
not taken,
into a powerhouse, I think that's very impressive, and it just speaks volumes to what kind of program, what kind of coach he is. So yeah, those are my 3 predictions. Ohio State to the college football playoff. Cincinnati goes undefeated, and Scott Frost gets his ass canned.
All right, how about you, Tom? What do you got?
So my 3 predictions are: I think Breece Hall will be the nation's leading rusher and be
I knew this, but I knew that was coming. Tom loves Breece Hall,
and this dates to my first show on From the Stands last year. I was asked who has the higher ceiling, Najee Harris or Breece Hall.
Yep.
I still stand by that statement, right? I mean, you got to be true to it. My second one, I think Jim Harbaugh gets fired from Michigan at the end of the 2021 season. I don't like where they're at as far as the Big Ten is concerned. I think there are a lot of uphill battles. Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio State, Penn State. Look, there's a lot of good teams in that conference, and Michigan still seems to be a middle of the pack team. And my third prediction is my Notre Dame Fighting Irish will be in the college football playoff. I think our biggest task on the road this season is Wisconsin in week 4. Our new starting quarterback, Jack Cohn, is a former Wisconsin quarterback, so he's going to have the inside scoop on that team. I think if Notre Dame gets through that game, look, I understand they have Cincinnati, USC, UNC, Virginia, Stanford. Those are no give me games, but I think they're going to fight and claw to a near perfect record. I'm not saying they'll go undefeated, but I think the SEC is going to beat each other up. The Big Ten is going to beat each other up again. And it usually, when that happens, what it does is it opens the door up for a team like Notre Dame to sneak in as that 4 seed. Power conference. Fans might not like it, but I do feel confident in this team bringing back a great safety in Kyle Hamilton as well, who's going to lead this defense in 2021. So those are my 3 way too early season predictions. But talk to me after week 4, after the Wisconsin game, and then we'll kind of reevaluate that stance I just gave you.
All right. Well, I think, Tom, I think you had a spy looking at my notes because my very first one, Tom Harbaugh, or sorry,
Tom Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh. I was looking at another name. I was looking at another name here. Jim Harbaugh is getting fired this season, despite this new contract that I think brings him to 2024, 2025. If he doesn't do 2 of these 3 things, get Ohio State or get Michigan into the top 10, beat Ohio State, or make one of the top 2 bowls. I'm not sure which bowls are the playoffs this year. I had to look, but the 2 leftover that don't get the semifinal spots. If he's not in one of those, I think beating Ohio State in itself might, earn him another year. But yeah, you just talked about it with Scott Frost, Andy. At some point,
yeah, like right.
Despite the fact that these are hometown guys, homeschool guys, you gotta get some wins at some point. He hasn't beaten Ohio State. It's just been, I don't know how to describe it really, because you do want to trust the process, I guess. But how long is the process? I know if we're going back on, last year's show, with your Brees Hall call, we had a segment discussing how long do you give these coaches? And to me, I think my answer was basically 3 or 4 years, like an entire recruiting cycle. Harbaugh's had that. It's not looking up, I guess is the way to put it. So I think he gets the can if he does not pull off 2 of those 3 feats. And then for me, you're locking Ohio State in, Andy. I'm not going to give exacts, but I think at least 2 of the 4 big blue bloods that have continuously made the playoff are not going to make it this year. If I had to guess, I think Clemson might be one. Obviously, DJ Uiagalelei got a little bit of action last year when Trevor Lawrence was out against Notre Dame, so that's obviously helpful. But they have a big game coming up against number 5 Georgia. So even if they lose that, it'll be a quality loss. That'll put them right behind in the early stages here. And we know that the playoff committee, puts a lot of money into getting those big wins. And this is probably the biggest on their schedule. So right out of the box, they need to get that win. And then my third prediction here is that Iowa State will win the Big 12 this year. What a great combo they have between Brees Hall at running back, just like you said, Tom, just fantastic running back. Probably, I would say, top in college football this year. Yeah,
I'd say so. He's a junior now, so third year guy, right?
Yeah.
I would classify him there because look what he did as a sophomore.
Yeah, I think at the very least he's top 3. We are forgetting somebody, but he's way up there this year. And then they have obviously Matt Campbell, fantastic coach, and returning Brock Purdy at QB. That's a very strong core of veteran leaders and veteran stat leaders. So Spencer Rattler has been the Heisman preseason leader here. Everyone likes him, but that usually doesn't work out. I think out of the last 7 years, the Heisman favorite going into the preseason only once has won it. I can't remember who it was. I know it wasn't Manziel, though. So Spencer Rattler, the favorite here. That probably means he's going to mess it up. And Iowa State sitting there, I think, at number 7. I think they're going to be there to clean up the pieces here from Oklahoma and win the Big 12. And so with that, we're going to move into our games of the week, known as the Shots and Chasers. Starting off, noon, Big 10 football. We got Wisconsin versus Penn State. Both teams ranked here. We'll start with you on this one, Andy. Who do you like?
I think this is going to be a really tough game. This is going to be a classic Big Ten football game to start off our slate on Saturday. So, number 19 Penn State going into Camp Randall to take on number 12 Wisconsin. Wisconsin, if we're looking at it, I got to throw in my degenerate gambling here. So the Wisconsin 5.5 point favorites over under a 50.5. So both quarterbacks from each team return. You get Graham Mertz back, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. You may remember him from absolutely torching Illinois in his first start last year. They do have a new running back, Clemson transfer Ches Malusi comes over. He's named the starting running back for week 1. They bring back Jake Ferguson, the solid tight end who had four touchdowns last year. If you look defensively, obviously they're still led by Jim Leonard. He's entering his 5th year as defensive coordinator. They bring back Jack Sanborn, who had 52 tackles last year at linebacker. Really, if you look at their numbers offensively last year, they left a lot to be desired as far as Wisconsin goes. The number 3 overall offense in the country in 2020. Number 5 defense, though. This defense has the chance to be elite once again, and I think this has the potential to be a slugfest. We know how Wisconsin likes to play. They like to pound the rock. And behind that big offensive line. So Penn State's going to have their hands full. They do bring back Sean Clifford, who really was up and down last year. We know the struggles of Penn State. It was well documented. He had 1,800 yards, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. A guy to watch for them. They bring back Jahan Dotson on the outside, 52 receptions, 884 yards, and 8 touchdowns last year for the Nittany Lions. He was one of the only guys out there making plays, one of the only guys that really had a good year for them last year. They do have Ellis Brooks back on the defensive side of the ball. He had 60 tackles last year to go with 2 sacks and 8 tackles for loss. They have to replace Yetur Gross-Matos. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but whatever. I think they lost both of their starting edge rushers from last year, so they're going to have to replace that. They also bring in a new offensive coordinator. Former Texas OC Mike Yurcich joins the Nittany Lions. This is their 3rd offensive coordinator in the last 3 years. So I think that is something to watch for. They're going to have their hands full with this number 5 overall rated defense coming back from last year. I think one thing to watch, the time of possession battle. Wisconsin led the country in time of possession last year with 36 minutes and 20 seconds a game. But Penn State was no slouch with that either. They were number 9 in the country with 33-41. So I think whoever possesses the ball longer wins this game. If you're betting, I think you take Penn State to cover, but I think Wisconsin wins this game in a close one, 17-14, Camp Randall.
All right, yeah, just quickly, because I know, Tom, we're running on short time here. For me, I'm probably going Wisconsin here. I love that pound the rock mentality. That big O line always making those holes. And Penn State, losing two veteran players in Owa and Mike Parsons to the first round of the NFL draft, which is you never want to see that. I'll take it short. Wisconsin here. What do you got, Tom?
I have Wisconsin too. I mean, they struggled down the stretch last year, lost badly to Iowa, by the way. The Graham Mertz for Sean Clifford QB matchup is going to be very interesting, but this game is not at Penn State, so I'm pretty sure Wisconsin is home. So I really like cornerback Joey Porter Jr. for Penn State. I think he'll step up big time for the Nittany Lions this year. That's one player to watch that kind of flies under the radar just a little bit, but Wisconsin has a good quarterback. They have a big tight end, powerful offensive line, and first-year OC going up against an experienced DC and Jim Leonard, who is a very successful NFL player. This is a recipe for success for the Wisconsin Badgers, who will be 1-0 after this weekend.
All right, and then the chaser for the 12 o'clock slot, we have Oklahoma versus Tulane. Game was supposed to be in Tulane. Hurricane Ida changed those plans. It has moved to Norman, Oklahoma, but it will still be recognized as a home game for Tulane. I believe all the proceeds Oklahoma is giving them to Tulane as if it were their home game, so that's pretty nice of them. Probably going to be a one-sided game nonetheless. Tom, what you got on this game?
Well, we know Spencer Rattler is going to be a top 5 pick in next year's draft, barring any injury setback, right? So he threw for 28 TDs last year and over 3,000 yards. Him and Sam Howell, you could argue, are the 1-2 in college football right now. Nick Bonito is returning 8.5 sacks for Oklahoma. He led the team in sacks last year. They did lose Isaiah Thomas and Ronnie Perkins, though, defensively. So I think that's going to
Isaiah
be
Thomas is
interesting.
back.
Oh, he is back. My bad. Ronnie Perkins was the guy that I was thinking of who's not coming back. He was drafted this year.
Yeah.
But they still have a powerful defense and an experienced defense where their defense stays experienced throughout the years. That they stay old, and that's what you want to do as a defense, especially when you're going up against a running back like Cameron Carroll, who had 12 rushing touchdowns last year. He is a beast. Tulane defensively, they lost two defensive linemen to the draft, Patrick Johnson and Cam Sample. So that's a huge loss for them. Oklahoma's going to run all over them and win this game big.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could give Tulane a little bit of hope here as an AAC guy, but 31.5 point spread, not looking good. I just, shout on Spencer Rattler as being the Heisman favorite, but I think
Hammer the over.
yeah, I still think he's good enough to take him home here. What do you got, Andy, besides taking the over?
Over under is 68.5. I think Oklahoma is going to put up a shitload of points. Tom mentioned it. You have the Heisman favorite in Spencer Rattler, over 3,000 yards last year. I want to talk about the defense just really quickly. They have a huge defensive front. D coordinator Alex Grinch said that they are going to play 8 interior linemen, 3 DNs, and 3 rush backers because they all have earned the right to play. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage that rotation. But their defense is going to be scary. Tulane has their work cut out for them. One guy I want you to watch on the outside is going to be Michael Woods for Oklahoma. He comes over from Arkansas last year. He had 32 catches for 619 yards and 5 scores for the Razorbacks. Eric Gray wins the running back battle for Oklahoma. They didn't really know who's going to be their starting running back to start this year. They bring in a transfer from LSU who ends up leaving the program, who actually I guess he was really only supposed to be like the third or fourth string guy. But there were multiple running backs that left the program this year. Look for Gray. He had 772 yards last year and 4 touchdowns. Look for him to try to bump that up a little bit. I do want to give a shout out to my buddy Tyler Yoder. He actually just started working for the Tulane athletic department, moved into New Orleans. 6 days later, he's got to evacuate because of the hurricane. My thoughts are with you, my friend. I'm going to be rooting for Tulane on Saturday. I don't think they're going to get it done, but thoughts are with you, Tyler, and everybody affected by that hurricane.
Yes, that's a very nice sentiment there. Obviously, can't do much right now from where we all are. None of us are really near that area. So thoughts go out to all the people in Tulane and surrounding areas. While they all go through this. And in 3:30 slot, starting off with the shot, the big one, Alabama, preseason number 1, going up against Miami, preseason number 14. This game's being played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium on neutral ground in Atlanta. Andy, what are we looking at for this one?
So the last time Miami opened up their year with playing against the number 1 ranked opponent, they won 31-0 over FSU, albeit that was 33 years ago. So it has been quite a while. Manny Diaz did come out this week and says he feels like his team is more prepared for this matchup. He cited the game against Clemson last year where they did get like mollywopped, but he says that, they kind of figured out a little bit more where they're at compared to those top teams. Obviously you have De'Aaron King back, who's absolutely electric. But they're gonna have their hands full defensively. I mean, for Alabama, this is Bryce Young's first career start. It's been kind of difficult for them to game plan against him just due to lack of tape. Like they have his tape from high school, but not really as much against the college defense. In the spring game this year, Bryce Young threw double the amount of passes that he did all year last year when he was Mac Jones' backup, with 44 in the spring game, 22 last season. But this is the player I think everybody needs to keep their eye on, John Mechie. His return is going to be huge for the Crimson Tide. He is going to be their number 1 receiver this year. He was second on the team in catches last year with 55. Big play threat. He had 4 games with a catch of 40-plus yards last season, including a 78-yard touchdown against Texas A&M. He has great hands. He runs his routes really well, but he's also really effective as a blocker. and he is not afraid to get in your face. So Miami's veteran secondary is going to have their hands full. They like to play aggressive. They play a lot of man-to-man. They're going to get in your face, little bump and run. But they were 5th in the ACC last year, allowing 233.9 pass yards per game. I think they're going to have to stay under that if they have any chance of beating the Crimson Tide on Saturday.
Yes, they would have to stay under that. I don't think they will stay under that personally. And I'll just add, I think it is nice that Miami has King back. He seems like a good fit for that program. He's been doing pretty well, but Miami's 2 big games to end the season. Last season, a loss to Oklahoma State and UNC back-to-back. Those are both ranked teams, so not looking too great. And to everyone saying, oh, Alabama, lost all these players to the draft. They do that every year.
They reload every time.
For anyone that, follows social media, flying around Twitter was that picture of Hurts, Tua, and oh my gosh, now he's slipping.
Jones.
Yes,
Jones.
Mac Jones. All 3 of them together with a quote saying, if you're worried about not being a starter, don't, because all 3 of these guys starting in the NFL week 1 this year. So, Bryce Young probably going to fit in very nicely. Mechie going to take over for Devonta Smith, who's gone as number 1 receiver. So I think Alabama wins handily here. Tom.
They're 19-point favorites. Lay the points every time with Alabama. Every week, you will be plus money at the end of the year. I swear to God, just lay the points.
Mechie is listed as questionable, but he's going to play. They have Slade Bolden too, who was coming on late last year, the slot receiver, and they got Jamison Williams, a transfer from Ohio State, who is taking a starting job as well. So those 3 are the receivers you need to look out for. Their left tackle, Evan Neal, top 10 pick in next year's draft, cornerstone of that offensive line. He's outstanding. I know he plays a different position from Landon Dickerson, but he's virtually his replacement as the leader on that O-line. Will Anderson and Christian Harris are rock-solid linebackers. I expect to go off this year. And Miami lost a lot of pieces defensively. They lost Greg Rousseau, Jalen Phillips, and Quincy Roche all to the draft. Their front 7 is good, but they're new players as well. Zach McLeod and Jafari Harvey are going to have some issues going up against that Bama O-line. And DB Bubba Bolden is my player to watch on the Hurricanes defense. 4 forced fumbles last year. I know we like those funky names here from the stands, but if Miami has any chance in this game, Bubba Bolden needs to make a couple of big plays. Bama's winning this one big.
And then in the chaser slot, we have number 18, Iowa, versus number 17, Indiana. Tom, we'll start with you.
Well, Indiana's QB, Michael Penix Jr., he was good last year, but he was nothing spectacular, right? I know the Big Ten, they had a shortened season. I like their running back, Stevie Scott, a lot. 10 touchdowns last year. We can't say Wap Filer anymore here on the show, but we still can say Ty Freifogel, who is back. 7 touchdowns last year. I love saying that name. Micah McFadden leads this defense for Indiana, 10.5 tackles for loss, 6 sacks last season. Iowa, shortened season last year. They went 6-2. Kirk Ferentz is back, has an outstanding defense. And their DB, Jack Horner, led the team with 3 picks. I like him a lot. He's a good veteran presence for that Iowa defense. Iowa is at home, too. This is a 17-18 matchup. So you're looking at 2 teams who are highly ranked. And I know their quarterback, Spencer Petras, had to quarantine over a month last spring due to COVID-19. But this Iowa team is at home. They're going to be ready to go. They are favored by 3, if that's still the spread as of last night.
Yep.
I think Iowa is going to take this game at home. I think Indiana on the road week 1, it's just too much. So Iowa's going to win by a slim margin.
Yeah, I do. That the Iowa crowd is a very good crowd. Having the fans back will be helpful. I do like Mr. Michael Penix Jr. here. He obviously had that fantastic play against Penn State last year, the diving touchdown off the pylon and the dying moments of the game. So obviously, you love playmakers like that, but Iowa season after season is always there in that 8 to 15 range as a team. They're just very, very solid team, so they're hard to beat. At 3 points, I don't know here. I would like to see Indiana win because, I keep up that momentum last year. I liked Penix Jr. He was, injured at the end of the season, but he had, I think, 14 touchdowns, just under 1,700 yards. Um, so I'm rooting for Indiana, but I think Iowa wins here. Andy.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Tom mentioned it's just tough to play at Kinnick. I don't know if Indiana's going to have enough. I do want to bring up, Tom, I'm going to disagree with you that Penix was not average. And when he was their starter, they averaged 34 points a game and 393 yards. I don't know what about that is not not impressive. When he didn't finish, because he did tear his ACL last year, their points per game went down by 14 to 20.3, and they lost 80 yards per game at 312. So he impacts this offense. He is electric. But the guy, Tom did mention it, our name guy, Ty Freifogel, 37 balls for 721 and 7 touchdowns. The thing there, he averaged 19 and a half yards per catch. Iowa's secondary is going to have their hands full with Freifogel. He also gets Peyton Hendershot back, who had over 600 yards 2 years ago with the shortened season. I think he only had about 150, but he did score 4 touchdowns. A couple names to watch on the Indiana side in the secondary: Tywan Mullen, Devon Matthews, Jalen Williams. They made all Big Ten teams last year, and they return for the Hoosiers. I think they keep it close. I'm currently seeing, the spread is currently at 3.5. I kind of like Indiana to cover that 3.5, boys. I kind of like Indiana to cover that 3.5. So, I'm going to go against the grain. Indiana wins.
There we go. I like to hear that. Then moving into our late night slots, biggest game of the week here: number 5 Georgia versus number 3 Clemson. Mr. Hare, Trevor Lawrence, is gone this season, replaced by DJ Uiagalelei, who, like I said earlier, got a little bit of playing time when Lawrence was out last year. So that might be helpful here. Andy, who do you got taking this game?
As much as I hate to do this, I think I have to pick Georgia. JT Daniels, when he came in last year, that offense was just different. He really proved that he is the best quarterback in Athens. I think they take it. I mean, we saw what DJ Ugalele was able to do last year. I mean, they did lose to Notre Dame, but he still put up pretty good numbers. I think. I mean, Clemson is another team like Alabama where they just reload. Like they are not the same as Alabama, but pretty damn similar. With it's just another 4 or 5 star guy that they can bring up. So I think this is going to be an awesome game. I think a lot of points are going to be scored. And I think JT Daniels goes for 300 plus and 3 touchdowns. And the dogs, baby. I think the dogs take this one.
The dogs. I like it. Yeah, I'm also going Georgia here just because of what I said earlier in my way too early predictions. Let's get some new blood in there. Let's get not that I dislike Clemson, but a Georgia win shakes things up in week 1. So, why not? Like you said, JT Daniels returning, very good for that offense. They've got Zamir White, who's a fantastic back, and a loaded core actually behind that. And the most interesting thing about this game, Clemson cornerback Darian Kendrick, Clemson cornerback last year, was dismissed from the team. Where's he playing at this year? He's playing at Georgia.
Nice.
Other side of the ball, so that should be interesting. The one thing that I think Clemson kind of has here is this is technically a neutral site game in Charlotte. That might as well be a home game for Clemson, so that helps them. But I'm rooting for Georgia, so I'm taking the dogs. Tom.
I'm going to disagree with both of you. I think DJ got big time experience last year against Notre Dame. Balin Spector is back. Miles Murphy is back. Both names are very familiar to this defense. The offense, not so much. They're kind of new, a lot of new players. I don't think JT Daniels will be coming into Clemson and sneaking this one out. I do agree with Andy's point, though. I think he is going to throw on their defense a little bit. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns sounds accurate. However, George Pickens, their leading touchdown guy from last year, is out indefinitely with a knee injury, and that is huge heading into this game. I do like Zamir White, 11 TDs last year, but defensively, who did Georgia lose? They lost Azeez Ojulari. They lost Tyson Campbell on the defense, but they are still very experienced with juniors and seniors, which is why I think this is going to be an extremely close game, closer than some may think. But I have Clemson sneaking this one out. Got to be a little different, no?
Yeah, I like it.
All right, we'll take it. And then starting at 8:30, so if you catch it nicely, probably around halftime, we have UCLA versus LSU. LSU ranked, UCLA not, but already has a game under their belt. Who are you taking in this one, Andy?
Oh, go Tigers. Come on, man. I'm not going against Coach O. I mean, 5-5 last year, really disappointing season for LSU coming off the national championship. But I think they're due for a bounce back year. I think they're ranked 16th for a reason. A lot of people were not happy with that after how bad they were last year. I think they finally figured out who their quarterback is. And I mean, that's pretty important because you need to, like, the dudes in the locker room need to know who the guy is.
Right.
Like you need to know. So I mentioned earlier that the visor's back for Chip Kelly. So watch the hell out. We know, Thompson Robinson is really good for UCLA at quarterback, but I'm going with LSU here. I got to go LSU. I know it's stupid just to take the ranked team because they're ranked, but they've proven more to me in the past couple years than this upstart UCLA program under Chip Kelly has. And I mean, yes, UCLA just put up a bunch of points, but we really excited about wins over Hawaii.
Right. Yeah, I had to throw this game on here because, like I said,
No, it's a good game. No.
Zach Charbonnet on the offensive side here for UCLA. Maybe dark horse Heisman, and then on the other side of the ball for LSU, we have maybe one of the top defensive prospects here in Stingley Jr. So it'll be nice watching both of them on the field at the same time. And like I said, going to have that halftime gap there for Georgia Clemson. So you can flip over to this game here. And yeah, LSU having their QB situation sorted out via injury is usually not the way you want to do it. But I think Max Johnson will be, at the very least, a nice stopgap for them. And I think LSU's defense, is usually still too stout. They went away a little bit from that during the Burrow era, but I think that was mainly just because they were scoring so many points. Other teams had more time on the ball. So as a UCF fan, I understand that when your time of possession is only 20 minutes of the game. So I'm taking LSU here, but I think it'll be a nice game to watch. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I do think UCLA has an advantage as far as playing